What we have today is a panel of our supply chain majors from days past, right? We have four folks up here, and I'll talk to each, kind of each one's background and give you a little info on them. And then, as the session said today, it's really a conversation and communication about what supply chain is, what they've done, how they got to where they are, the skill sets that they took out of here and thought were valuable here, and then the skill sets that they developed as they worked their way through the jobs that they've had, people that have helped them along the way, whether they be ECU folks or mentors or events that they've attended, and then overall is how did you get interested in supply chain? So let me just start. Is Allyson, Allie down here at the end? She was a 2020 graduate of our supply chain program. She's now in the MBA program, and she works full time here in town, right? At
Thermo Fisher Scientific.
Thermo Fisher, I thought so, yes. I was going to say, for whatever reason, my mind went to metrics, and that's not correct, although they are a pharmaceutical company in town. So, all right. Allie had the privilege of being a CSCMP conference intern for us, and who knows, she might bring up some of those memories. But it's good to have Allie back, like I said, from 2020. James, in a blue suit, James is also a 2020 graduate. I got that right, didn't I, James? Yeah, 2020? Yeah. Yes. And he's working for Lowe's. In fact, he got that position, I think, at Lowe's because he was an intern at Lowe's earlier as an undergrad. Very good, yeah. James was an ISM student chapter officer. He also then attended one of our conferences that we go to in the fall, the STAFTA conference, and we had a wonderful time in Nashville. And maybe he'll tell some stories about that, maybe not. All right. First Lieutenant Tori Leech is here. She is, again, First Lieutenant. She is a Marine Corps, in the Marine Corps. She was also a 2020 graduate. She was an ISM officer for our student organization, and she also attended the STAFTA conference that year. And it's very good to see you, and thank you she came all the way from San Diego, so very good. So. And she'll tell us about what she does for the Marines and our safety and the defense of our country. So, Brian Morrow on the right here, or my right. Brian's a 2015 grad. He was in I think the fall of 14, my purchasing and materials management class. Brian is currently working for Coca, Consolidated out of Charlotte. He was an ISM officer also in our student chapter. He was the treasurer, I believe. So he did a wonderful job for us back and graduated in 15. I think I mentioned that. And finally, no offense, Kenneth, you may be the senior man on the dais, right? Kenneth graduated in 13, correct? Right? He was in my fall of 2012 class, and I know Kenneth, you'll talk about this a little bit. You worked for Ann's House of Nuts for a while. Then after that, you went and worked for Flanders, I believe, or somewhere in there. And now, can I say who you work for now? Or is it? Yeah. I was just going to say, I think it just started from what I saw on LinkedIn is you're working at Thermo Fisher then also, right? Okay, very good. So these are our folks. They were all here, like y'all were at some point in time in years past, doing all the things that y'all are doing. So. As I said in the program, is I guess if I could start out, maybe I'll start out with you, Kenneth. Is that maybe because your path is interesting. You've been kind of at this for a little longer. So how did you get to where you are now?
I have to say ECU had a lot to do with it. Without the supply chain management degree, I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I've had so far in my career. So I would say a combination of the degree and just a persistence. I've persisted through some challenges in my career, and I think that's been what's helped me.
Very good. Tori, if you would, a little different path, right? I mean, coming into ECU, you were Marine ROTC, correct?
No, so the way that the Marine Corps program works is that you apply for the officer position if there's no NROTC at campus, like there is here. So I applied for the Marine Corps OCS program, and basically it's where they evaluate your leadership skills and decide if you have what it takes to be a Marine officer. So I actually did that between the summer between my junior and senior year. And a lot of the things that the College of Business and all the leadership classes taught me, I was able to apply there. It was a 10-week course, and they evaluated our leadership skills, our perseverance, mental, physical, emotional toughness, and everything like that. And then I came back to the College of Business for senior year and finished it out.
I can say this, is that there were many times over at the gym when I was riding a bicycle sitting down, and they were working out as, I guess, your Marine Corps unit and running and doing things, and I thought, I'm not gonna, no. That's, yeah, it was, how many ever, I'm not gonna tell you how old I am, but I was like, nah, that's not happening for me anymore. So it's good to see you back, Tori. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
James, tell us a little bit about how you kind of got to where you're at.
So for the most part, I learned a lot of mine through the College of Business classes and mentorships through the professors and the people that were kind of doing the TAs. I've asked a lot of questions with them, and then also just networking with people that I've known from, previous jobs and things that I've done. My brother was also in business, so he had a lot of intel for me. Pretty much going into my senior years where I started to network more, and that's when I started to pick up a lot of different knowledge, meeting new people that would help me get to where I wanted to be, and then also just having connections that helped me learn more about the business and kind of decide if I wanted to be in business or if I wanted to be in supply chain or sales. So it worked out for me just networking and talking with different people, especially Cross. Cross is very helpful when it comes to knowing business, and he was also sending me internships and everything, so he was a big help in all of that.
Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. ECU opened up a lot of doors. And you take a lot of these leadership classes and supply chain classes, finance classes, and sometimes you're like, when would I actually use that in the real world? You do, surprisingly. But I think one of the biggest things is when you have opportunities like this conference, meet people. And I'm not even talking just people that are in the business world right here, even people that you're sitting next to. How I got my first internship was a friend that I met at a similar type of conference, who then I met his mom, who then introduced me to another person, who then opened up the door to applying to an internship, and it kind of made me rock and roll from there. So you never know what will happen. Take advantage of the resources they have available. Dr. Cross helped me a ton because in one of my interviews I had to deep dive in a scenario and I was clueless on how to approach it. So again, the opportunities are here, and it's very helpful to take advantage of it.
Ellie, go ahead.
When I first came to ECU, I actually was not a business student at all. So when I was taking those business core classes, I took one with Dr. Kirchhoff in the general supply chain management realm. And I met with him and built the connection with him after class. And he told me that if I wanted to be successful and be hands-on and touch every part of a supply chain, then I should go into supply chain as a degree. And I was like, okay, sold, perfect. And from that on, building those connections with your professors and things of that nature, that it opened up doors of being a research team lead at Vidant when it was Vidant, and then also going to a conference in California sponsored by the ECU College of Business. And at that conference, I networked and got my first internship with another pharmaceutical company, and that then enabled me to not only have that experience on my resume, but also leverage it for my next job of having a greater salary and getting better benefits and being confident in my knowledge because I gained it from the College of Business in order to enable growth and say, I have what you want because I have a foundation at the ECU College of Business, and it kind of pivoted me towards the rest of my career.
Very good. Thank you, Allie. We'll kind of come back to some of that is where they came from, where they've been, those types of things. I think it's important for us to think about that is some of them are on their first jobs. The first job they took, they're still there. Others are not. And I think that's an important thing for us to think about, not only in supply chain, but also overall in the business world and as you work your way out into industry. I always like to talk about this is that what skill set do you think benefited you the most coming out of ECU, and what skill set do you think these folks should, if they're not working on it or concentrating on it, what would you give them as to say these are one or two things that, boy, maybe they're simple, but these are things you should be interested in or concentrate on? And I know our speaker earlier gave some, about reading books or getting yourself informed about different topics. So, Kenneth, why don't we start again here?
I would say working in teams, that's critical, being able to work in teams. Everything we do at when I was working at Flanders, and I would imagine everything I'm going to do at Thermo Fisher is going to be a team effort. Also, you have to, if you're not a composed person, that's something you're going to have to develop. You're going to have to make sure that you're able to deal with all types of adversity. With this degree, you're going to have the opportunity to lead. So you're going to be in a position where you're going to have some issues thrown at you, and people are going to say some things to you that are difficult to deal with, but you're going to have to learn to be composed and try to figure out how to make the best decision moving forward. So decision making, team, working with teams, and professional. I know you only asked for two, but I'm going to give one more. Professional development is really critical. This is just the beginning for you. So make sure you're looking at some of the supply chain management certifications, also continuous improvement certifications. Those are valuable. With that being said,
Thank you, Ken. Go ahead, Tori.
As a woman in the Marine Corps, obviously I'm a minority amongst many men, and in the supply chain world also it's a typically male-dominated field. So I think as a woman in supply chain, your biggest strengths are going to be advocating for yourself and also selling yourself. So the only person who's going to care about your career is going to be you at the end of the day. You need to be the person who's advocating for going and taking these courses, like training, hands-on, like you need to be the person who wants to be involved in things. And then selling yourself is when it comes to customer relations and working with teams, like you said, and meeting other people, like you want to make sure that you're putting yourself out there as someone who's likable, who you're able to work with. Like personal relationships are, if not the most important thing, like one of the most important things, especially in supply chain. So that would be my advice to everyone.
Thank you, Tori. James?
Kind of piggyback off of what she said, personal relationships is big, especially within your team. Being an open book, also being able to just listen to what they're saying. Coming into a company where there's people that has way more knowledge, 15 to 30 plus years of knowledge, listening, soaking that in, writing it down, and don't be afraid of failure, because trial and error is the best way of learning sometimes. Especially for me, it was my best way of learning, rather that was in school or my first few months on the job, it was trial and error. And as you learn, make sure you continue to grow, and then as you grow, just make sure that you're applying that to your work, rather that's in school and you're having a test and you're learning the best way to study, and now you're learning, okay, if I do it this way, I can get this grade. Just continue to apply what you learn to get further and continue to learn new things. And then communication is very key, and that's rather how you communicate and the time manner that you communicate, and just kind of trying to understand the person that you're communicating with is very valuable too.
Thank you, James. Brian?
So I don't repeat what they say. I'll kind of go a different route, kind of towards the technical side of things. So in supply chain specifically, you're going to get your hands on a lot of different systems. Excel will be one of them, and so being good at Excel helps. But you're also going to get introduced to some planning systems, SAP, Oracle. You've heard those well. I would suggest be open to change and be open to understanding not only what your position does, but what your position affects upstream and downstream of the supply chain. And even if you want to go farther than that, learn what other departments do, because that's one of the beauties of supply chain, I think all of us can agree with, is we get our hands in with a lot of different teams. You'll find yourselves talking to the accounting department, you'll find yourselves talking to finance, manufacturing, you might even talk to sales guys at times, depending on the role you have. Depending on the distance. So change is one thing to be very open to. I know Dr. Cross is one of those guys that does not change with technology. As you know, he doesn't have a cell phone still. So I would suggest be open to understanding new technology when it comes out.
It is true, Brian, it is true. I still do not have a cell phone, and I'm not interested in one, so we'll leave it at that.
My biggest piece of advice is going to be to have goals. Have goals that you feel are unachievable, but rely on your resources in order to get you to those goals. So at the College of Business specifically, they will enable you. Nobody's going to tell you, if you want this job, you need to go do this. But let them guide you to the answer. But in order to get to any goals, you're not going to just wake up one day and automatically be successful in where you dream about being. You're not going to have, the six-figure salary and the giant mansion sitting behind you unless you work hard. That's my biggest piece of advice, is to work hard, but also to be nice to people. Be very humble. Every impression counts. And when you are a constant learner, the way that we talked about earlier, if you're constantly open to learning, people pick up on that. And they see that you're a humble individual, and they want to surround themselves with people like you, but also it puts you in better positions for visibility. And visibility is really important when it comes to industry.
Thank you, Ellie. I would agree with everything you all said. It really, truthfully, is. And I hope, I'll speak a little bit for Dr. Delana and myself and Dr. Flaska and Dr. Kirchhoff and all of us, Dr. Lowe, for the supply chain. We tried to do all those things in class. I hope you see it as the idea of visibility, looking up and down the supply chain. Again, working with others and understanding, trying to understand their point of view, being humble. I like that, Allie, is to say, although I think I might know everything, I don't know everything. And, it's better to be humble at first than, have to get called in for the vice principal or whoever's going to call you in, right? So, I guess let me move on to this next, is that I was thinking actually on the way here today, a fond memory came to me, and it has to do with James and Tori. Is I thought to myself I thought, you know what? I was in Nashville with those two at a conference, and it snowed. And I was like, it snowed the last night we were basically there. And that, I don't know if it was that same night or the night before, I thought, I actually got to go to a concert in Nashville. I got to see Big and Rich. And Cowboy Troy, yes, he was there, and it was a raucous event. It was wonderful. I'll use that language, okay? What I'm getting at is not to put you guys on the spot, right? Because again, Allie went to a conference, and it was in Anaheim. We were right by Disney. We had a wonderful time there also. But my mind goes to the idea of events that you throughout your not only undergraduate that you may have attended and said, I'm never going to do that, or why did I agree to go do that? But then also when you get into your profession, you say, boy, Tuesday night I'm tired, I don't want to go to that meeting, or I don't want to attend that other conference, or someone invited me to go for dinner with them, should I do that? So maybe if we could just talk a little bit about those types of things, I don't know if I'm going to call them soft skills, but things that you say, hey, this is it, this opportunity comes at you, take it, because it's going to make a difference, So maybe, James, if you got something to say?
Yeah, so from that conference that we went to in Tennessee, just talking with vendors and learning communication skills through that was big for me. I mean, obviously, I had just interned with Lowe's, and I was talking with vendors. We were working with John Deere, and I was learning the different, aspects of how these people talk and how they communicate within their business, but also how they try to, sell you on things. So, and then now I go on store walks with my company, right? Rather that's with the merchant team, just to get communication and show my face. I work from home, so showing my face and letting them know how I'm interested in the business, learning the different aspects of the business and learning how they talk to each other and the kind of language that they use as far as talking business, and also the communication skills that they use towards each other. That way, when I'm trying to work towards a higher position or trying to ask those questions, they feel more comfortable to talk to me about certain situations. And then, I still have people on my LinkedIn from that conference that I talk to, or they will reach out to me and ask how I'm doing. So having that networking is very important because, some of these vendors reach out to me and ask, hey, how do we get this in Lowe stores? And I work hand to hand with merchants, so I can put a word in for them. And, and I'm sure if I was to reach out to them and ask them a question, they would do the same for me.
Let me ask Kenneth one question. I'll come back to you, Tori. Is that all right? Okay. Because I was going to ask you, Kenneth, is I know a number of times when you were working up at like Ann's House of Nuts up there in Robersonville, you kind of sponsored us to come up for a tour, either the students or a professional organization. Just that was one thing I thought about when it came to our relationship.
So yeah, that was just you guys have done so much for me. I felt like any opportunity I would have, I would want any opportunity to give back. I want to take advantage of it, just like doing this conference, and I think I did it a few years ago as well. It's just this university, and you guys mean so much to me that I just felt like it was the right thing to do, the best thing to do, and the invitation is open for you guys to come to Thermo Fisher whenever you want to,
Well, Will, you're writing that down. Connor, you're writing that down.
All of y'all can come.
Those are the officers in the ISM organization right now, so I'm looking for you. Write that down.
But yeah, it's just wanting to give back because you guys have given so much to me. I know I wouldn't be where I am today without you guys. And I see John Davis back there. Can I share a story?
Absolutely. Keep going.
So my senior year, my father actually, he was pretty sick. He had cancer. And I was in a position where I felt like maybe I should take some time off, but I didn't. Dr. Cross, Dr. Delana, and John Davis, those three guys, I told them what was going on, and they wrapped their arms around me, and they helped me get through that tough time. So that's one of many reasons why whenever they call, I'm going to be there. All right.
Thank you, Kenneth. Go ahead, Tori.
So for one, the conference in Nashville was a great time, so I still talk about it to this day. But while we were there, all of us were assigned mentors, and mine happened to be from Stanley Black & Decker. I'm pretty sure he was something like vice president of marketing, very high-ranking guy. And this was right before I graduated, so I knew I was getting ready to commission in the Marine Corps, so I wasn't really interested in like looking for jobs or anything, but he and I really clicked right off the bat, and he invited me to get a drink with him and talk, and I really got to sit down and know him, and he wanted to know about me and if I was interested in a job, and I had to respectfully decline as I was already committed to the Marine Corps at that time. But ultimately, we ended up hitting it off, and he invited me and all of the supply chain students to come to the Stanley Black & Decker party that they were having that night, and it was really great. And I think that was the first time that I was actually put in a position where I was probably 22, getting ready to graduate college, and this was a much older guy, and the way that we were able to just kind of like connect, and I'm sure we had nothing in common, but it was just how we were able to communicate with each other, and I was selling myself to him, even though like I wasn't really like looking for anything, but we formed a really good bond that weekend, and I'm still friends with him on LinkedIn and stuff like that. But now I'm able to kind of take that experience and that relationship that I built with him as the most junior ranking officer at my unit. I work for a colonel, so that's an 06 and I'm an 02. So I have to advise him on what to do with his money and where we're spending it and funding exercises and stuff like that. So I think having that sort of foundation for building relationship with someone who's a lot older than you, but in my case, like I'm controlling his money, he delegates that responsibility to me. And so having that relationship with him and being able to like put our differences aside and find like that common ground where we're able to foster a relationship and communicate and all that kind of stuff is really valuable. And I didn't know it at the time. I thought I was just, making a connection in the business world. And I mean, my mentor offered me a job. He was like, call me when you get out of the Marine Corps. So it was great. And those kind of interpersonal relationships is really what's going to be what carries you through everything. And that's why we talked about selling yourself and communication, stuff like that. it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And so that's equally as important.
Thank you, Tori. You want to say a few things, Brian?
Yeah, I think another thing to go along with this is whatever role you end up in, whatever company, I think what was very helpful for me, and I'm sure all of the panel here can agree on, is learn what other people do. You heard me talk about know what other roles do and everything, but you never know that might also lead you to a direction that you actually want to go in your career path. I went into supply chain thinking that I wanted to go the managing people route, managing a warehouse, managing a manufacturing plant. And I sat down with a guy who was staring at a computer all day doing data analytics. And if you asked me when I was in college, I would have never wanted to do that. And it turned out that it actually ended up being my passion. And I never would have known that if I didn't spend an hour shadowing what that guy did for a living. And that's my suggestion to you is to take out of this is be open to learning what other people do, because it will lead you to a direction you might not even think you want to go. And it ends up being, it makes work easier, because then you end up not working, you end up doing something that you love every single day.
Thank you, Brian. Go ahead, Allie.
So going into industry, you're obviously going to be the youngest person there, and they're going to believe that you're naive, even though you did just graduate from a 4-year university, and you should be beyond proud of yourself. What you're going to learn on the job is something that you're going to take with you. I remember when I was graduating and I was telling my parents and my grandparents about my degree. They were like, what are you going to do, be a supply chain manager? And no, it's a overall kind of a broad umbrella of what we do. But I mean, there's procurement, there's sourcing. If supply chain management, the entire end-to-end channel of flowing of materials is not for you, there's a specific subsection where you can hit on. If you're passionate about data, absolutely go for it. If you're passionate about buying the raw materials to be made into materials we buy in the store, I remember I wanted to go into fashion and buy the raw materials out of India and other places in order to be made into fashion and clothes and buy for bulk. But unfortunately, I found pharmaceuticals and I fell in love with it because it's such a fast pace. But now I'm in a overall higher level view of it. But if I didn't have the foundations of understanding how each piece flows together in order to create the end product, I wouldn't be able to successfully supply drugs to clinical sites across the world. So make sure you understand what a supply chain does in the different roles within it.
Okay. Thank you, Allie. We've got maybe about 15 minutes left. I was going to ask is if anybody has any questions, I'd gladly take them from the floor. I'll hand you the microphone. You can ask. If not, I can keep talking for sure. So, anyone? Here we go.
So first I wanted to ask, did any of you go to graduate school?
I am in graduate school right now.
What made you decide to move on from your position that you're in to getting your graduate degree? Is there something that you're looking to expand upon, and why?
I'll start since I have the mic, but so I decided to go back because if you look at, and this goes back to what I said earlier about having high goals. I want to be a CEO of a company. I want to be a director level, and I want to make decisions for the bottom line little people because I used to be a bottom line little people. But if you look at any company that you adore, that C-suite is going to have a higher level education for the most part. And if you can set yourself apart from other people by having 3 letters behind your name, you might as well do it. But my biggest bit of information for you is to find a company that will pay for you to go back, and then you have less stress when it comes to financing and everything like that, and then there's not a reason not to go back.
So when I made a decision to go back was literally 4 months ago. It was basically because I work from home. So my job to me, now that I've been working it for 2 years, has became second nature. So I was like, okay, I can pick up something different. I can learn something different in the field. So I picked up data analytics to go back to school for, and my company pays for 80% of it. So it's kind of, win-win situation. And, and a lot of the upper management was encouraging me to do so. And there, of course, I want that director role. I want to have, to be able to get that leadership skills that will come from having the graduate degree. And then, having that extra knowledge doesn't hurt. Now, especially that I've been in the field and I can kind of relate a little bit more than that I did with undergrad. So it was a win-win for me.
So to piggyback on what they said, I'm looking to reach that C-suite level as well. And if you're looking and to look at any company, most of those guys have a graduate degree. So if you're looking to reach the highest level you can in a company, other than starting it yourself, more than likely you're going to need an MBA or some type of graduate degree. So. Yeah.
Okay. So what is something you guys wish you would have known before starting your first position, or something you struggled with and you feel like you should have looked more into before you started? Because I know me personally, I'm starting a global supply chain internship soon, and I'm nervous because I don't have any prior experience. So I'm scared I'm going to start and then wish I would have, gotten a certain certification first or looked more into things before I started.
You're going to fail. And that's just the nature of anything that you do when it comes to professional and breaking into the industries. You're going to fail. So don't be afraid of it, because it's going to happen. And like James was saying earlier, that's the best way to learn, is from your mistakes. Just don't harbor on those mistakes and let them get to you personally, because it's not personal. And it's just a part of growing, is that you're going to fail, but you need to take what you've learned from that failure and apply it to what you're going to do next. And be versatile, be willing to be put in any position that they're going to give you, because it's probably not going to be what you want either. You're just starting out, you're going to be the fresh meat, like they're going to put you exactly where they need you, and it might not be where you want. But one of the biggest lessons that I learned, especially being in the Marine Corps, is to grow where you're planted. So it doesn't matter what kind of position they put you in, what location you're at, like whatever they have you doing, you need to excel at that, especially as an intern, because you're going to show them that, hey, like, I'm the person who you want working for you. Like, no matter where you put me, I'm going to excel. I'm going to learn from my failures, learn from my mistakes, and I'm going to do it better next time. And if I failed that time, I'm going to do it even better the next time, and just continue to grow and learn from everything, learn from the people around you, and don't be afraid. That's what you got to go into it headstrong, is you just can't be scared.
Also, every company is going to teach you. Like, they're not going to just say, hey, you should know this from college, and because they speak different languages. I go into Lowe's, and I don't know what half of these things mean when they say it. I'm writing down, like, okay, he just said, what is that? What is JDA? Which, I mean, I know that it's a buying program, because, like, we talk about SAP and all these other things, and I'm like, okay. And then they're saying different terms, and I'm learning. So, like, when I moved into my position, I failed bad. I was in pellet fuel, and there's no way of knowing forecasting for pellet fuel. Like, you don't know what region's going to have a snowstorm. So once I failed, my manager looked at me and was like, okay, internship, this was amazing, but what's going on? Like, is it the coming in remote? What is it? And, I took that, dusted myself off, and, learned the business a little bit better. Was able to move out of that role into a place I'd rather be, and it's all about learning, and don't be afraid to fail. It's going to happen, and when it does, become better from it.
Yeah, to piggyback off that too, I would say ask questions, and don't be scared to ask questions. I think one of the biggest things that happen, especially when I was in internship, they'll ask you to do something, you'll sit in a meeting and they'll talk, and you'll just sit there and walk out and kind of be nervous to ask, well, what did this mean? Because we should know what it is. I'm telling you, they're not thinking about what you need to know, so when you ask, they'll teach you. Just like the professors here, just like you learn here. I remember I was in a meeting, it's one of my favorite things to talk about, and you learn all these acronyms. Some person said, grab the SOP, and then like 5 minutes later, someone says, okay, we'll have that for the meeting for the SOP. And I walk out, I'm like, what? And one guy was using it as standard operation procedure, and the other one used it for sales operation planning. How the heck was I supposed to know that? So I asked, and then they taught me the differences, and then you're able to recognize it in the future. So do not be scared to ask questions. I'm sure everyone here would agree with that too.
Anyone else? We good? Yeah. Yes? Here.
It'll be quick, I promise. So for those of you that are in graduate school, do you go here?
Yeah, roll pirates.
Okay, I was going to ask what made you choose ECU's graduate program over any others?
Ooh, okay. So the College of Business is set up in a way where you can get credits for your undergrad. So it shaved off about 2 years for me. Yeah, they do a great job because you already are familiar with the professors, you're already familiar with the system and signing up for courses and everything like that. So I had that piece of comfort. But when it came to cost, my company pays $10K per year per however well you do. So it wasn't a money thing for me. It was more of just like a pride point. I was like, double alum, why not? Purple and gold, baby, all day.
I know, James, you're at Pembroke, correct?
Yes.
And Kenneth, you're at Wake Forester, correct? Go ahead.
So I did not choose ECU, but it's not because I didn't like ECU. It's just simply like their program. My brother did the program, and it was all online. It made sense, and he was like, "Hey, you can do this too." And he did it in 12 months at 7-week courses. So I was like, I got the time. I can lock in, and I can knock this out. So that's kind of why I chose it. And it's cheap, and my job is paying for most of it, so it worked out.
Good.
Wake Forest, the way their program is structured, it works better for me, for my schedule. Like right now, I'm taking like one class every 7 weeks. So, since I'm a working professional, that works best for me. So that's the biggest reason why I didn't choose ECU. So, no offense.
No, none taken. I understand. You go. That's the place that's best for you. So, it's a good question though, and I from my background is many of my professors told me go somewhere else for your master's and PhD because you'll see the world and you'll go do things. But I also agree with Allie, as I love this place and I would maybe have stayed here too, for all the degrees. So, anyone else? Any other questions? We got 5 minutes or so left. John, you have, yep.
So I'm not on the panel, but I do teach here, and you guys made me think of a story. So I was undergrad here at ECU. I came back after working for a while and worked on my MBA and got that. So I was a materials accountant at what at that time was Glaxo, which was a pharmacy company up in Raleigh. And so I supported all of the supply chain people and valued inventory, and you could say I was part of supply chain. I was technically in the finance and accounting area, but all I did was work on supply chain and valuing of inventory. And that led me later in my career to I went over to a hand tools company, and I was working in finance and budgeting there. And so I went upstairs and got to know the marketing and brand management people because my time in supply chain, as you guys mentioned, it sort of made me an Excel, I wouldn't say expert, but I was pretty good. And so I went upstairs and got to know the marketing people, and I made their jobs easier because I did all the number crunching for them to give me the sales forecast. And so that went on for a while, and I got to know everybody in marketing, and I got a chance to become a marketing analyst. And so I went over into marketing, and I learned a lot of stuff working with them, and I knew all the people in the manufacturing area because I was interfacing with them. And I think it was the gentleman in the checkered shirt talking about the linkages. And then I got a chance to be an assistant brand manager. And because I'd spent all that time working with the supply chain experts like you have up here on the dais, I respected what they did. I knew what they did. And I got to know the people when I became a brand manager. First thing I did is I went down and got to know all the supply chain people that I was going to be working with and as part of a team. And one of the things they kept telling me is this chrome plating we put on the tool, our best-selling tool, causes us a lot of problems, and it raises the cost over time. It causes us to have to carry more inventory. We can't get throughput through. We can't give customer service as fast when we get a blip of the order cycle, when our orders come in faster than we planned for. And because of that, I went back to sales and said, guys, we need to change the crescent wrench. And my manager came into my office and said, you know, we haven't changed this wrench since 1907. You're making a career decision here. I said, well, then that ought to tell us something. If we haven't changed something, and it wasn't 100 years at that time, it's time for us to do something. And if that means I fail, okay. But because I knew what the purchasing supply chain professionals were doing, and I was willing to listen and not be the all-knowing sales and marketing guy, and I was willing to sell it to the salespeople, and I went out to sales management and told them what the benefits would be to them. And we talked to customers, and they said, I don't really care about that feature, losing that feature in one particular area of the tool. If you're going to get all these other benefits, is not a deal for me. So a couple of things. Everything they told you was the truth. Supply chain's a great place. You're going to work with everybody. And I got to know some supply chain people that I talked into becoming marketing people. So great advice from the diocese. And you guys can do anything you want to do because you're pirates. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We're about at the end here. If there's anything else, gladly talk about it. I think we got a little bit of time afterwards to stick around. If folks want to stick around, I know we've got to be, you got things to do, but also 12 noon here, we have some things. But I want to say thank you so much. I mean it when I say this. I was so excited to see all. I counted kind of here. We have at least 60, if not 70 people in the room. It's exciting to me. I'm glad to see that you all showed up. I'm glad to see that my students showed up. That was excellent. And the supply chain folks. And if you have any questions, please come on up, get a business card, talk, or what's that technology stuff, Brian? You put your phones together, yeah, you know, and it kind of links up, yeah, that stuff, you know. Right? I'm kind of kidding there, but anyway. But thank you so much, all 5 of you. Thank you for coming back. I appreciate it immensely. And like I said, thank you all for coming. And we're kind of done for today, but we'll stick around for a little bit to talk. All right.